Hello, I'm OK, and you're in the stream. Today, the 10-year initiative to end racism, discrimination and social exclusion against Europe's Roma people has 2 years left and it's far from its goals. We look at the reason behind this lack of progress. Digital producer Malika Bilal is here looking out for your live feedback. We had a lot of comments coming as we were tweeting out what the subject was, including from the European Commission.
We did.
Share.
Which we were surprised to see. They jumped in on a thread on our Google Plus page, which I pulled up on my screen here. It started with this post from Serene who says, assuming that the EU actually cares about the Roma, because they haven't in nearly 200 years, well, the European Commission wrote back saying, the European institutions and EU countries have a joint responsibility to improve social inclusion and integration of the Roma by using all the respective instruments and policies for which they're responsible. There's a longer post and you can check it out on our Google Plus page as well. But in the meantime, we want you to get involved in the conversation. So tweet us with the hashtag AJStream.
Now, Twitter isn't the only way that you can get in touch with us. Have you checked out our Instagram account yet? If you haven't, you're missing out. Log on to instagram.com/AJStream. That's where I am right now. And there you can find out some of our upcoming shows. You can look at the graphics for them, some of the pictures that you send in to us, and the ones that we really like, well, this is what might happen to them. They could end up being Stream of the Week.
I'm Evan Kurtz. I teach elementary school in Baltimore, and I'm in the stream.
They're Europe's biggest ethnic minority, and for decades, the Roma people have been targets of racism, discrimination, and social exclusion. 10 to 12 million live in the European Union, often with few opportunities. Now, back in 2005, 12 European countries decided to do something about it. They signed a multinational initiative called the Decade of Roma Inclusion. The aim? To eliminate discrimination against the Roma and close what they described as the unacceptable gaps between the Roma and the rest of society. Now, a few years later, the EU established a national framework for Roma integration and all of the members signed on. But the EU Commission's latest report says that not enough progress has been made, and most member states have failed to allocate the resources to make integration a reality. So, with 2 years left in the Decade of Roma Inclusion, what's holding up progress? To help us explore this, we're joined by Martinek. He's the director of the Czech Government Council for Roma Minority Affairs. On Skype, we have Istvan Forgacs, the former head of the Hungarian Office of Roma Affairs, and right now he's an independent expert and consultant on Roma affairs in Central Europe. And in our Google Plus Hangout are Dezideriu Gergely. He's the Executive Director of the European Roma Rights Centre, and Ivanka Mariposa Conkova is a Czech activist. It's great to have all of you here in the stream. Mariposa, you do a lot of work with Roma communities in the Czech Republic. I want you to give us one very vivid example of racism or discrimination that they face.
Okay, what's just coming to my mind is when I remember where the Roma are forced to get out from their houses just because here is somebody who wants to develop his own idea and build something on the place where they are living, and they are clearly evicted, forced and moved out from their houses because they're simply because they are Roma and people don't want them around, because then the area can be that much rich how they are wanted, because if Roma are living there, the people don't want to develop their shop or make the high school or university there because they think it's not good enough for the people to live around them.
So basically they're just pushed from location to location. You're in the Czech Republic, Martin, you're in the Czech Republic as well. This initiative, the Decade of Roma Inclusion, it's such an ambitious title. If I happen to be part of the Roma community and I lived in the Czech Republic, what has changed for me in the last 8 years?
In the last 8 years, well, I would find one of the biggest successes or the changes is establishment of the Government Council for Roma Minority Affairs. This council was already at place since 1998 or 7, where it was an interministerial commission, and in 2009 the council, as an advisory body to the government, became on a prime ministerial and ministerial level. That means that members of Roma community can directly speak with the main representatives of the states, including the prime minister, who is the chair of that council. This is one major institutional setting for Roma integration. The second one, I would say, since 2008, the Agency for Social Inclusion works in localities of socially excluded localities in the Czech Republic. So those are two main governmental instruments, mechanisms, how to directly work with Roma and how to tackle the situation socially excluded localities on local level, on the ground.
Malika.
Well, we asked our community a question: will EU states be able to meet the goals of the Decade of Roma Inclusion that Femi, you just asked about? Desislava wrote back, Desi, and I'm going to have you answer this one. Desislava says, not in Bulgaria. Funds are spent inappropriate and never reach its actual beneficiary. Roma people live in total isolation. Now, Desi, I know that you've been working in this field since 2000 or longer. Can you tell us whether or not this is true?
I would say that this is true, and as a matter of fact, this example applies to several countries in Central Eastern Europe as well as Western Europe. So if we make a comparison with the conclusions from the European Commission's assessment on the governmental policies which were presented 2 years ago, the European Commission's conclusion is not far away from that conclusion, that there is extremely little progress. And there's a lot of substantial efforts needed on the ground, in particular because that's completely missing in the major part of EU countries. Efforts, unfortunately, at the local level are not yet in place.
So, so Mariposa, I heard you say, "Can I?" Of course you may. What did you want to say?
I would like to react to this proof or to these things what just Martin Martinek was talking about. He was talking about that here are two instruments for the Roma, what wasn't here before, as a council and agency. And he says that in council the Roma can directly speak to the ministers. That's right. Maybe they can. Maybe we can directly speak, but who listening us? And this is not any politic power. This is a council. This is not a power to make a decision. And with the agency for the social inclusion, which is working in the locality, they object with who they are working, and I think you know that. It's not a Roma, it's not a people who are living in the locality, but it's a municipality or NGOs organization who are working in these localities. So I just wanted to add this information into it.
Istvan, I want to bring you into the conversation here as well. One of the things that I found really shocking was to look at not old pictures from the 1970s or the 1930s, but pictures of Roma communities in Europe today, and the living conditions are appalling, absolutely appalling. And they're living in areas which are really wealthy and very well connected and have infrastructure. Can you help explain to our international audience how there's a group, and a very diverse group, scattered around Europe that are living in these kind of conditions?
I think it's a very, very complicated issue. I mean, housing is always a question of several ingredients. It's an issue, first of all, we have to talk about the fact that even in Hungary, even at the 50s, still we had Roma communities that were moving, that were not settled. They just tried to find their own place. And in several countries, it was the same situation, as I said, even still at the 50s. In France, even today, you can find many communities that are just on the road. So I think one fact is that there are Roma communities that just simply are on the road or were on the road, and they just simply didn't find their own place. If a Roma community, if they are newcomers, it is never easy to integrate into a local community that is already been settled in that spot, even for hundreds of years. So I think, first of all, it is an issue that we probably should talk about. And when a Roma community is in such a situation that they are newcomers, they have to find their own connections to the majority, it always can create such situations when they're just simply missing the main infrastructure. And as a newcomers, it is not easy. Even the local officials to understood how they can help these communities and how
but
to
Istvan, we could have this. We could have had this conversation a decade ago. We could have had this conversation 50 years ago. We could have had this conversation 100 years ago. Why is this happening with the Roma community in particular?
I think this is probably the most difficult question to be answered at the moment, and I think there are several. I mean, the answer can be built out of several parts. We have to talk about, first of all, that even nowadays the majority is just simply without real trust towards the Roma communities. So when the resources are at the majority, it is very, very hard to take from those resources when the major society is not open enough towards the Roma community.
So one's money then? One's about not having enough money?
It's not only about money. Money is very, very important. But when the director of the bank, the director of the school, the mayor, or all those officials who really have the resources, when they are not Roma, or when they just simply cannot really understand the situation of these so-called newcomers or people who came only just a couple of decades before into that community, it is just simply a too big gap to do something in this situation. So first of all, we have to underline this fact that the resources are at the major society. The real question is that how we can get from those resources. Can we try to get it, how to say, with a corporation, or we just simply should rely on human rights? So it is a question that is also not easy to be answered.
All right, and probably needs a lot more time than we have right now. Let me bring in the community and Malika, and then we get back to you, Mariposa.
Well, a lot of our community is saying that many of these problems stem from the fact that there are deeply entrenched stereotypes against the Roma community. Matej says gypsy people, as he calls them, and cultures have been deemed criminal by default for the past 8 centuries or so in all righteous Europe. Is this news? Question mark. And then there's a video comment on the marginalization of the Roma people. Desi, have a listen to this and let me know what you think.
Hello, I come from Romania, and here I have a lot of gypsy friends, and they are good people, but I think they experienced marginalization for so long that they are no longer confident in their ability to do something with their lives. No one will go to school and be called gypsy or stink nation or dirty. So what I really think we need is not money, not benefits, but we need to give them education, and we need to educate ourselves not to discriminate.
So Desi, what's the first step to combating the marginalization?
I mean, if we comment a little bit the message, I think that there is a lot of truth in it. In a way, acknowledging the fact that once you live your entire life in a marginal situation, put outside and being excluded, you live with that, you accept that, your self-esteem in a way vanishes away, and then there's no room for improve yourself or overcome your situation because your experience is based only on exclusion. So if your experience is only exclusion related, it is almost impossible to overcome your own situation unless there is support. Now, imagine yourself, you are a Romani kid, born in a very poor, excluded family. What are your chances to be part of the society as long as the society don't accept you at all? And what are your chances to overcome with your own resources
a little bit?
This, you know? So it is, in a way, it's not necessarily it is education from the society, it is education from the Roma community in itself, that you need to struggle with your situation, you need to overcome, to fight that, and also it is about the society to support that. It is a joint effort, if you want. Unfortunately, when we speak about Roma, there is no joint effort.
Let me just bring in Martin, because I could hear you mumbling, and I really want you to share what you were thinking with our audience.
Thank you very much for the floor. I just wanted to briefly reflect on the comment from Romania, and to answer your questions about like what are the first steps. And on my first reaction would be there are no first steps. There are two actions. One is related to Roma community, that means to work with the Roma on the local level, to build confidence in the system, to build confidence in themselves so that they can grow. And then the second step, or the second side of it, is to work with the majority society, with the main population. And in this regards, I would like to react also on Mariposa's remark that the Agency for Social Inclusion only work with the municipalities. Well, yes, they do work with municipalities. They create local partnerships where Roma communities are involved, but the main work is with the mayors, with the police, with the municipal police, so that they create conditions for the Roma to be accepted, with the headmaster of the local school, so that the Roma children have the opportunity to study in a mainstream education, because as we know, the Roma children are still lacking behind because in the education in the Czech Republic, and we have to really work hard and improve this situation.
Right.
And that's what the Ministry of Education is doing right now.
See, Martin, I see Mariposa, she's shaking her head and she's smiling. Mariposa?
Yeah, I'm just looking on the work of agency, and I'm see how to look how they are developed a relation, how they are working in the localities, and when in these partner counseling what they are created, I'm always missing the people. We are talking about them, but they are not here. That's what I'm seeing. I don't see them in these partnerships. I see the NGOs organization. I see the people from municipality, but I don't see the Roma who are living in the locality inside. And if I questioning why or where, they say we are going to do because we feel it's important. That's great that we feel. I think we feel this too long, and still nothing's going really on. And I would like also, if I can quickly react about when we are talking about education, and where we're talking that where is the mistake, why is the situation still same, or it's much more worse than how was it before. And I would like to say how long we will waiting since society will recognize that we are here and that we are the partner for the society, and they can develop with us, and we can develop our own things in the society. How long? And another things, is it the education system of the majority? Is it a good system if they are produce the people who are the races where they are growing up?
Mariposa, there were a number of questions which really reflect your point of view that our audience were also asking. Malika.
Exactly. Perfect timing, Mariposa, because our community is asking, well, what do the Roma want? Danny on Facebook says, even if it is that the Roma don't want to integrate, is it surprising? Would you want to integrate into a culture where, regardless of the reality, these stereotypes are perpetuated? And Serena says, the Roma will never trust the non-Roma if the change is forced upon them with no respect of their cultural identity. So, Istvan, I guess people are questioning the idea of integration. Do Romas want integration?
First of all, I would like at least partly to agree with Martin, because I think it's very, very important to underline that the integration or the social inclusion, I mean, it's my point of view, is not possible to be done on a national or even on an international level. The social inclusion can be made only on local level. It means that even in Hungary, we have hundreds of localities where the cohabitation between Roma and non-Roma is just simply not easy. And there are several localities where Roma and non-Roma can live together very well. The question is, why is the difference? And as I said, I think the social inclusion can be made mostly on local level, because on local level it is easy to overview the local resources, even inside of the Roma community. I think it is very, very important the Roma community also to realize that they have their own hidden or probably recyclable resources inside of the Roma community. And the second thing, what I think is very, very important to be underlined, is that we Roma just simply should avoid to blame the whole major society in any of the Central and Eastern European region. Because I think it is one of the biggest failure to blame only the majority because of the situation of the Roma communities within the region. And as I said, if the resources are in the hands of the major society, I think we the Roma really should focus on how to cooperate as tight as possible.
Okay, we're almost at the end of the main show. This conversation will continue in the post show. But before we go, Desi, I really want to ask you about Spain, because Istvan was talking about there are places where Roma and non-Roma live very well together. Spain could maybe be the model, perhaps. Can you explain why?
In general, Spain, it is given as a best practice model due to the governmental policies which were implemented for some time. And one of the examples from Spain, which is given all the time, is at least in terms of housing, for example, because for quite some time the Spanish government tried to start with programs that were focused on housing and build around ensuring access to basic utilities for the Roma communities. And I think that Spain indeed is an example, because what is important when the governments are implementing or adopting or implementing policies is that they look for integrated measures. You know, you cannot solve only one issue alone. You need to look across the issues. You know, so you have to couple housing with education and with access to healthcare and to employment. If you solve only one, then you would have another problem standing around that. So I suppose Spain is given as an example in this regard.
The European Union Commission's latest report on the Roma Inclusion Initiative, they're quite critical of what's happened so far. This is Viviane Reding. She's the European Union Commission VP, and she says we need more than strategies that exist on paper. We need tangible results in national politics that improve the lives of Europe's 10 to 12 million Roma. This is an area, Martin, that you're working on all the time. Are you feeling optimistic or pessimistic about the next 2 years? That's when that decade of Roma inclusion is over.
Well, I would definitely be positive about the future, because this is the nature what we have to really believe, that the work that we do bring merits. Whether it will happen, well, it's upon us, and I believe that with our colleagues and with our Roma colleagues, and together with Roma NGOs and with the people, the right people at the right places, throughout ministries which are responsible for implementing those specific parts of Roma integration, we will really bring change. What is concretely speaking, I think there is a huge expectation on change to happen in the field of education. We really must stop sending Roma children into practical schools.
Okay.
The Ministry of Education is taking this issue very seriously.
All right, Martin, you just mentioned something called practical schools. There are other issues in the field of housing. Martin, hold on 1 second. You mentioned something called practical schools, which I'm going to explain for an international audience, are schools which are believed to be for children who have difficulty learning, and that is a whole area that we're going to get into in the post show, so Martin can go backtrack to that and actually explain it for us at stream.aljazeera.com. But before we get to the post show, I have to tell you about tomorrow's plans. Now, I am going to be heading off as soon as we've done this show to the movies to see Johnny Depp in The Lone Ranger, so I can get ready for the next program. We will be asking, what does it mean to play Indian in Hollywood? We will discuss the stereotyping of Native American Indians in popular culture and how it affects their community. Stay with us. Stream.aljazeera.com. That's where we will be, always online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Streams online post show where we're continuing our conversation about Europe's efforts to integrate the Roma people, who are Europe's biggest ethnic minority. So helping us explore this, we have Martinek, who is the director of the Czech Government Council for Roma Minority Affairs. On Skype we have Istvan Forgacs, the former head of the Hungarian Office of Roma Affairs, and he's currently an independent expert and consultant on Roma affairs in Central Europe. And in our Google Plus Hangout we have Dezideriu Gergely. He's the executive director of the European Roma Rights Centre, and Ivanka Mariposa Conkova is a Czech activist, otherwise known as Mariposa. So, Martin, we were running out of time in the main show. We have more time here in the post show. You mentioned practical schools, which only people in the Czech Republic will know what you're talking about. So let's open it up so everybody watching understands as well, and why it's an issue with the Roma community.
Well, let me explain it. In the past, we faced a really challenging issue in the field of education of Roma children. It happened that many children were sent or were studying in so-called practical schools or special schools for children with light mental disabilities. And this was an issue that nobody could really, well, overlooked. In 2007, the DH judgment of the judgment of the European Court for Human Rights said that the Czech system is discriminatory towards Roma children.
So are we saying here that
Martin,
let me just check in with you. Are we saying that the Roma children in these special schools, are we saying that they had no learning difficulties whatsoever and they were just put there because it was discrimination? I just want to be very clear when we let our audience understand what was going on here.
Well, they said that the over-representation of Roma in those practical schools is a sign of discrimination, because, you know, statistically speaking, only 2% of the population should be in those schools, and suddenly you've got a large number of specific ethnic group studying in those special or practical schools, which is rather something strange and unfair. So we really had to look back into what was happening and find measures to combat, or let's say change this system, so that Roma children will have much better opportunities to study in a mainstream, regular elementary school for normal children with their class peers from, you know, all variety of society.
Right. Okay.
If I can jump into this, if I'm allowed.
So,
Desi.
The European Roma Rights Center was challenging Czech Republic before the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. So I can tell you a bit more about this issue, as segregation of Roma children in special education doesn't take place only in Czech Republic. There are several countries in Central Eastern Europe. With this year we won before the European Court of Human Rights against Hungary on the very similar topic, but we also won against other countries like Croatia, for example. There are other cases of segregation of Romani children against Greece, on the other hand. The main problem here in all these cases is that Romani children are placed in either separate schools, which are special schools, either in separate facilities, either in separate classes. But the main feature here is that when we have Romani kids in schools, they are put in a separate class, facility, or school. And that is wrong, and it amounts to discrimination.
So Desi, it reminds me of 1960s America, where black children might have been separated from white children. Are we seeing the same with the Roma community?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So I want to bring in some of the community here as well. Malika.
Well, I'm shifting gears here a little bit, Istvan. I'll go to you with this, because people are questioning whether or not the Roma are shouldering enough of the responsibility. David says, I've lived around the Roma, and they're given tons of money, free housing, benefits that no one else gets. They're not interested in assimilating. They prefer to live on the fringes and, quote unquote, preserve their culture. And some more criticism from Clara, who says, a lot of people in the Czech Republic are angry at the Roma because they feel like a discriminated majority. Roma have advantages meant to help them get out of poverty, but quote-unquote white citizens are envious because they see it as an inequality of the social support system. So Istvan, care to tackle those? Are Roma doing enough for themselves?
As I said, I wouldn't talk about, especially in Hungary, about a whole Roma nation. I would talk about Roma communities. There are communities where the Roma really can show up such efforts that the local non-Roma majority just really can respect. Because of this, in these localities, the cohabitation is very good between Roma and non-Roma. Let me say that it's very interesting that here in Hungary we have a very, very strange situation. Never before was the Hungarian major society so closed against the Roma than nowadays. Many people say that from my tax I don't want any benefit or any social relevance to be given to Roma. But on the other hand, I have to say that this is what I experienced, that never before I experienced such hunger for positive issues and positive news coming from the Roma communities towards the non-Roma society than nowadays. So it is very strange that most of the Hungarian non-Roma people closed as possible towards the Roma, but on the other hand, the whole major society is looking for positive issues and positive news coming from the Roma communities. So I think in many localities, it simply depends on the local Roma and non-Roma to find some kind of common language, how to do something together.
So Mariposa, you spend a lot of your work, a lot of your effort working with the Roma community. Do you see what Istvan is seeing?
I would like to say that I very appreciate that I'm here, because I'm not working with the Roma community actively for years, how you guys are doing. I'm quite a new but very intensive. I'm traveling a lot and I see how they are living. And I would like to go back to this education and then to the point what Istvan was talking. And I would like to say that everything is a base of the racism, is a base of anti-Gypsyism, which is historically rooted in our society. And we are living in the society in Europe for 100 years. So it's rooted, anti-Gypsyism is rooted in the society for 100 years. So if we wanted to see and talk about if the majority is angry of Roma community somewhere, we must to, at the first base, the point of our view of this information, because then I think we can make a mistake. Right now we are in Czech Republic in very hard situation because the neo-Nazis groups are growing every week. We have a demonstration from neo-Nazis every week, and people, the citizens, the neighbors of the Roma who were their friends before, now they are going with the neo-Nazis against them.
So Mariposa, let me ask you this very quickly, because we're almost running out of time and I feel this is really important. What would you and what do the communities that you work with, what would they suggest might be a solution to the fact that they continue to be discriminated against?
The solution is to have the power to change the things. That means to have a political power, or to not just to talk with the municipality and our government, but be heard and be wanted and take action and just to try to make it happen what we are talking about.
Okay.
Because here is the power what will care about the Roma, because they know how to change the situation and what to exactly do in their locality.
All right, so thank you very much to Istvan, to Desi, to Ivanka, to Martin. I'm actually going to leave you with the European Union Commission VP, Viviane Reding. She sums up our entire conversation beautifully. She says, it is good news that member states have delivered on their commitment and presented Roma integration strategies. However, member states now need to move up a gear and strengthen their efforts with more concrete measures. You heard some of those measures in this last 35 minutes of the Roma community and how Europe may be able to better integrate them. It's a conversation. It's the measures are still going to be going on. I'm sure we will come back to this subject in the future, Malika, right?
Definitely.
In the meantime, I'm going to see a movie that you saw already.
I did.
No spoiler alerts.
Tomorrow's show.
Yes. Why am I talking about a movie? No, I haven't gone nuts. I am off to see Johnny Depp in The Lone Ranger so I can get ready for tomorrow's program. We'll be asking, what does it mean to play Indian in Hollywood? We'll discuss the stereotyping of Native Americans in popular culture and how it affects their community. We will see you, as always, online. Thanks for watching.